Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I'm going to break down why Instagram stories are the best place for you to sell, and I'm going to show you some frameworks to do exactly that. There are too many people who don't understand how to use Instagram stories to push leads and sales to their business. Oftentimes they end up just posting random things throughout the day, which is great. Like, showing your personality is a great way to build trust and a relationship with your viewers, but ultimately stories are a literal gold mine for anybody who's trying to make money off of social media. And there are four main reasons why. And the first one is pretty obvious. If somebody follows you, they have some level of interest in you and what you have to offer, so you have an opportunity to speak directly to your ICP, i.e. your warm leads, right? And it feels almost exclusive because the only people that'll see your stories are your followers most of the time. Obviously, sometimes other people will land on your page and they'll see your story, but I'm talking about people who already have some level of interest in you and what you have to offer. And the second reason is it allows you to recycle traffic to your top performing posts. Every single creator has a handful of posts that outperform the rest of their posts. That's just how it goes. So you can leverage your stories to push traffic back to those posts and get even more opt-ins, even more leads, even more sales for your business just by reposting it to your story in a really simple way. Obviously, that isn't necessarily selling in the stories, but it is one way that you can increase sales. I will also break down how to sell in the stories in just a second. The third reason is it's a lot easier to put together than an actual fully edited reel, because you can just take your phone out, pull up an existing picture from your camera, right over it, and then boom, over the course of like 3 or 4 different stories, you can build an entire sequence that will nurture the viewers of that story and eventually get them to take action. And the fourth thing is leveraging close friends, right? A lot of you guys probably use close friends for your own personal Instagrams to communicate with a select group of people that you feel more comfortable sharing more intimate details with. But if you're doing this from a business perspective, you can ultimately allow people to feel even closer to you because they feel like they've earned the right to be in your close friends, and hence they will feel extra FOMO. And the best part is close friend stories always get pushed to the front of the stories feed in the top. So you have a much higher chance of people actually viewing your stories because of the close friends. Okay, now I'm going to break down 4 story frameworks that you can use for conversion. These are 4 separate different styles of stories that you can use, and hopefully by the end of this video you'll be able to use these 4 different frameworks to get more sales for your business. And by the way, the third one is my favorite. So the first one is ultimately resharing. I already mentioned this before, but the way this works is you repost your best reel onto your story to pour more traffic into it. So imagine you have a story, you just repost that best performing post, so you can funnel more and more traffic on a regular basis back to this best performing post, which ultimately has been proven to get more traffic to your lead magnets and eventually lead to more conversions. The pathway doesn't necessarily have to look like this. It could be literally just your story goes to your best post, this traffic generates calls booked through a ManyChat sequence that is triggered by a comment, or it can be through a lead magnet, or it can be through a CTA that pushes people to go to your link in bio. It doesn't really matter what it is. But essentially what you can do is on a weekly basis, you can repost your best performing post on your story and then drive traffic to that post and eventually get more customers that way. This works really well because first, not every single one of your followers see this. Second, people love rewatching content that has made them feel good or really hits home. So you don't really go wrong with doing that. Obviously, you can overdo it if you're reposting the same thing on your story every 4 hours because people will get tired of it. But if you do this like once every couple weeks, with a few select best performing posts, believe me, it'll work extremely well. And not only will the people who view your story go back and watch the post, it also has a chance of reviving it slightly in the algorithm if you get those people who view the stories to actually take action and comment on the post, if in the case it is a post with a ManyChat trigger. The second one is a live Q&A style story sequence. So essentially what you do is you post up a question or you prompt your followers to ask you some questions about your niche or what you have to offer. Right? You prompt them to ask questions and then you start individually answering them publicly. So you post the answers to your stories and you start sharing them valuable information. Sorry, that was really thick. Valuable information that you would share to your paying clients, right? Don't gatekeep anything, just share them all the sauce, because ultimately what you're probably trying to do is sell the implementation. Or you can even use the Alex Hormozi logic that I talk about in pretty much every single video, which is providing so much value before someone buys that their next logical thought process would be that you're going to provide them even more value after they buy. Once answering these questions, make sure you promote your offer subtly as a solution to the problems and questions they're asking, right? You don't want to be too salesy with this. You just want to say like, oh, this is something that we work on, or this is something that I recently helped one of my clients with in my coaching program, or whatever it is that you sell. You can subtly promote your offer as the best way to go about solving the questions that a lot of people are asking. Just to clarify, this does not work in the same way as an FAQ highlight would. So you know how some people have a highlight with general questions that are asked that you can see when you land on their page? Rather, this is just something that you can do on a weekly basis that allows you to nurture your followers and ask live questions, because if you end up answering people's questions as they come in on a weekly basis, you may get new questions asked, and you also may have new testimonials to update your FAQ page every single week. Sorry, your FAQ stories every single week, and also keeps things fresh and pushes it to the front of people's minds by actually adding it to a live story rather than just leaving it on your highlights. So they serve as two different purposes. Obviously, you can then turn these Q&A style questions into a form of a highlight on your page if you haven't done so already, but I'm assuming by now that you have already set that up. Okay, and the third framework, which is the one that I was talking about earlier, which is my favorite, is this closing framework. It's really simple, and you can do this pretty much every single day. After I show you this, you're probably gonna notice a lot of the people that you follow are using this on a regular basis, and you're gonna see why exactly it works so damn well. So it starts out with you essentially bringing awareness to a problem that a lot of people are having, right? So a story could look something like this, like most business owners post on social media for months on end with no results. Right, and you show a miserable looking analytics page showing that there's like hardly any views, hardly any engagement, no likes, and it leaves them feeling like it's a waste of time, right? So now you've brought awareness to a problem that some people have. Hopefully a lot of your followers, if this is your niche, right, something to do with social media growth, is something that they are aware of. Then you want to push on that pain point a little bit further with the next story. So you can say something like, while others get results immediately from posting, getting hundreds of thousands of views, and more importantly, in this case, thousands of leads flowing into their business, right? So now you've essentially highlighted a problem that they may or may not know they have, and essentially just push that pain point a little bit further. You found where it hurts, and you're like, oh yeah, well, there are other people who are just crushing it pretty much immediately, and yet you're getting hardly any views and leads, and your social media efforts are bleeding through your pockets, right? So if the right person sees this, they're going to be extremely invested to see what the next few stories are about, and your chances of converting them have gone up by a lot because you have just basically set the frame and the tone of how the next stories are going to go. The third story post is going to be a solution, right? So now you highlight the solution that you have that solves this problem, and it can look something like this. What you really need is a system that takes the guesswork out of content, right? A lot of people feel like they're just shooting in the dark with content and they have no idea where they're going. So a system that takes the guesswork out of that is something that would probably appeal to the people who resonate most with the first two stories that you have used to set the frame up, right? So now you can kind of dive in a little bit deeper. I would avoid making these too long because you could end up burning people's attention spans, and just people might not be bothered to read if they don't get invested early enough in the story framework. But if you do it right, you can pretty much write an entire essay, and the right people will read all the way through, which is the most important thing for you, because if the right person reads it, it's very likely that that person will take action later down the line. So you kind of dive deeper into it, saying something like, one that relies on proven content strategies that don't take hours of time to maintain, and most importantly has an autopilot system that will turn your viewers into leads for your business, right? This is just an example of a sequence that we've used on our story, and we also have a screenshot from our website showing off the things that we help our clients do. Right, we have winning video scripts and ideas, video editing that helps with retention and conversion, done for you distribution to all platforms so that people don't have to spend time every single day on their phones trying to post across the different platforms, custom automations to turn viewers into customers, and email sequences that nurture and convert leads. So essentially what you've done is you've highlighted the solution, and you've even shown some form of proof that this is what you've been doing, right? So that's the third story. Now the fourth one is you want to add some form of credibility to this. So this can be credibility / proof. It can either be like a testimonial of somebody that you've helped, or it can just be actual client results, right? So here it just goes, a system that will consistently and predictably bring in fresh leads for your business every single month. Showcase some really cool case studies that you have so people can see that the system that you're talking about beforehand actually works. This credibility post doesn't have to be just one story. You can make it 2 or 3 that go on after this. But the point here is to show that what you're talking about isn't just a bunch of nonsense, and that you actually have some form of proof that what you're talking about really works. Then the next story is for a call to action. Essentially what would have happened by now is somebody has become aware of a problem that they may have. You've pushed on the pain point, getting them riled up and emotional about this issue that they're having. You've shown them a solution to it, which is your product or service, and then you've even shown them that it actually works. So now this 5th story post is a call to action so that they can get started to solve this problem immediately. So it can go something like this. If you're serious about scaling your business with organic content, we're taking 7 new clients on this month. DM me growth to get more info. This is like really straight to the point. This really hammers home and gets the right person who's seen the previous stories excited about the potential for them to grow and to fix the problem that they've been solving. So you prompt them to swipe up and DM you the keyword that will start your ManyChat automation, which will get you that call booked or that sale, depending on how you have it set up. So now I've also added the option for you to add more proof after, because if somebody isn't convinced throughout this point and they've even seen the call to action, what may actually get them to go back and follow through with the call to action that you've posted is shoving more proof in their face. Just showing them case study after case study after case study after testimonial, showing what you're saying actually works, will probably cause a few people to go back and say, hey, you know what, maybe I'll actually swipe up and DM this guy because it seems like he knows what he's talking about, right? So this is the best story framework in my opinion. This works extremely well for any industry and any niche because it ultimately works on human psychology and it pushes on people's pain points and then ultimately satisfies them by showing them that there's proof, and you ultimately guide them by showing them that it can be achievable for them as well. The backbone of how converting people on stories works is by providing credibility after credibility after credibility, and then a clear call to action of what the next step would be. So the next time you're thinking about uploading some stories and want to actually get some more leads and sales for your business, think about it from that perspective, and I'll guarantee you that it'll work. And the fourth story sequence that you can use is the soap opera sequence. This is something that Russell Brunson talks about in his book .com Secrets, which is an amazing book, by the way, for digital marketing. And this was originally made to be an email sequence that goes out over the course of 5 days for somebody who has signed up for a lead magnet, and the lead magnet is then paired with this sequence that goes afterwards. But you can turn this into a 5-step story format just by following the same framework. So the first story would be something that sets the stage. So you can talk about how things were before you implemented a certain system, which is usually your own system, or you can use this in the context of one of your case studies and make an entire 5-story post about somebody who you've helped achieve their desired result through your product or service, right? So you set the stage in the first story. Then in the second story, you talk about some drama, some backstories, and a wall that they hit, right? So you can talk about some things that they were doing wrong, how they've tried different methods of solving X, and none of it was working. And on the third story, you talk about the epiphany, like the one thing that they realized they were doing wrong, or the one thing that changed for them that essentially allowed them to get to the next step. The fourth day is then showcasing the hidden benefits behind your product or service that has allowed you, or the testimonial that you're talking about in this story sequence, to achieve the results that they want. Then day 5, which is very similar to the previous framework which I showed you, is some call to action that has urgency in it, right? Urgency is a really great way to get people to take action, because in the context where there is no urgency, people do not feel pressured to make a decision quickly. And oftentimes, I know from personal experience, and I'm sure you can relate to, if you put off a decision to be made later down the line, that decision will probably never be made, and hence you may lose a sale if there's no urgency. Obviously, don't start creating some artificial scarcity by saying something like, oh yeah, we only have 5 more slots left, when in reality you actually have hundreds, if not thousands. That's just like a little bit cheesy, and don't do that, because if people find out, it looks really bad. So just implement urgency in a way that is honest. You don't even have to do it from the perspective of scarcity, like I just said. It can just be like, this problem needs to be solved because in the long run it'll cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars, or in the context of someone in the fitness niche, this problem needs to be solved because if you don't do this now, you will forever live with back and neck pain until the day you die. Or it doesn't really matter how it goes, it just has to be some form of urgency that gets people to take action immediately. Alright guys, so I just broke down the 4 different story frameworks that you can implement today that will drive up your conversions and get you more sales for your business, simply by just leveraging the audience that you already have, and by honestly making some pretty low effort posts that you can just put together in 5-10 minutes on your story and start getting extra sales that you never would have gotten if you didn't take the time to do this. So start implementing these 4 different types of stories and you'll see a huge difference in your business almost immediately. Obviously, this doesn't work as well for people who have a smaller audience, but it doesn't really matter. If you have qualified followers following your account, this will work for you as well. So don't make that an excuse not to start doing this. The more often you can do it, the better it is. So start implementing it today. If you found the video useful, please consider dropping a like and subscribing, and also try watching this next video because I think you'll find it really useful. Thanks again guys, and I'll see you in the next one.